All right, cool. So here's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be going over not only what's available for you to utilize inside of Final Cut Pro, but I'm going to teach you guys how to make a thumbnail for YouTube based on footage that you've actually pulled in from one of your pieces of video into Final Cut Pro. So to be able to do this, I had to fire off a video file to you guys. It is on your desktop now. Actually, if you take a look at it, it says lesson.mov. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up Final Cut Pro. So if you go ahead and go down to your dock, I'm going to turn off the lights so we can go ahead and get started. I can start putting my stuff up here on the screen. Again, if you ever have any problems at all, you guys can go on our Haiku page. And when you go on our Haiku page, you'll see there's a bunch of different tutorials for you to go back and take a look at. Photoshop tutorials on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, you'll have GarageBand tutorials for you to take a look at and go through. And then today's lesson is a little bit modified from the Photoshop Final Cut Pro 10 lesson. But anyways, we're going to try and make a YouTube thumbnail today from some of the footage that you have inside of your videos. So what I want you guys to do is go ahead and, as you guys are importing stuff, or as you guys are opening up Final Cut Pro, go ahead and create a new event. And the way that you'll be able to do this is by going up, or I want you to have Final Cut Pro open. Let me minimize this. Once you have Final Cut Pro open, go up to File, down to where it says New, and then choose New Event. Okay. And when you have the option to choose New Event, just type in lesson, because this is just a lesson for you guys to figure out how to do. Make sure it's going into your untitled library, because you haven't really created a new library yet, and we're just utilizing this stuff right now in order for us to do the lesson. And make sure Create New Project is checkmarked. Okay, we're going to use the automatic settings. We're not going to use custom settings or anything else like that. But I want to make sure that we're all set with that. Once you're done there, I'm actually going to change this to P3 because this is period 3 for me. Go ahead and hit OK. And once you hit OK, you should see your lesson inside of the browser window, right up here on the upper left-hand side. And it will have a project titled Untitled Project. Okay. Should be pretty simplistic. If you need help, like I said, just raise your hand up. I'll have a TA come around, either Cameron, Kaylee, or Isabel will be able to come around and help you guys as you guys are going through stuff. So they'll be able to help make sure that you guys have what it is that you need to have. Okay. So now we have our new event in here. That's good. We actually have a timeline we can work with down here at the bottom. But we need to import our footage. So does anyone know what the keyboard shortcut is in order to import footage? Go for it. What is it? Command-I. Thank you, Zach. So if we hit Command-I, you'll see all of your stuff pop up here. Again, I have a bunch of different devices that I can pull from. You normally would as well. For you guys, though, it's going to be under your favorites. You're going to see an option that says Desktop. So if you click on Desktop, a bunch of different information will show up. And then what you'll do is if you sort by name, you guys, it should pop up immediately. But for me, I have a bunch of stuff on my desktop. I have to go down, and I have to find the one that's titled Lesson. Now, once you find Lesson, you can either double-click on it, or you can single-click and choose Import Selected Item. But it's going to import that selected item, okay? And once it's imported into your browser, you now have the ability to go through and take a look at a bunch of different stuff for you to be able to do, okay? Go ahead and watch this lesson all the way through. If you click up here and hit spacebar, you'll be able to watch the lesson all the way through. If you take a look, you'll see a couple of different things that are kind of popping off on there. And you'll see that it actually stops here in just 1 second to a certain extent, so that way you can kind of see some stuff behind there. You'll see how it kind of popped up and showed a name really quick. That's the kind of stuff that we're going to be able to utilize and do today. I really want you to be able to take a frame out, be able to adjust some of it inside of Photoshop, export it out as a thumbnail, or even be able to utilize and bring it back in to Final Cut Pro. Okay? So it's a very simplistic clip, right? Very, 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 very simplistic. You have feet that are walking through a crosswalk. You have it where it stops, actually, where it says, like, in my case, it'll say, "Hey Broncos," because I had someone end up putting this together originally. And then you can continue to go about your particular business as you guys are going through and working on stuff. All right? So what I want you guys to do is go ahead and take this lesson clip and drag it and drop it down into your timeline. Okay? We're going to drop this down into the timeline. Now, what we need to be able to do is we need to be able to go through and find which area we want to stop at and which freeze frame we want to use for our thumbnail. So go ahead and scrub through and take this little marker and slide it down until you get over a frame that you feel is appropriate for your YouTube thumbnail. Okay, so I'm going to use this one right here. Okay, so you can take your playhead, which is this little guy right here, it looks like a marker in the middle of the screen, drag and drop it where you want to utilize a particular frame. And then we'll be able to utilize it from there. Okay? And what's great and fantastic about this is that it doesn't matter which frame it is that you choose. I'm leaving it up to you guys to decide, because you can utilize any clip or any frame at any time inside of any particular clip for a YouTube thumbnail. It is up to you to decide how you want that particular to be done. Cameron, can you go help over there and make sure they catch back up? Perfect, thank you. Okay, so I've got my frame. Now what we're going to need to do is we need to export this out. Does anyone know how we export our video? Where do we go? Like if you guys are done with your video, what is it that you hit in order to export out your video? Okay, most of the time you would hit Command E. So go ahead and hit Command E because I want to show you what pops up. Okay, if you hit Command E, it's going to take whatever timeline, whatever you have in your timeline, as long as you have your timeline selected. It's titled Untitled Project, and it's going to try and export out that particular project. Now you'll notice that if we just hit next, 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 we'd be able to export it out and it would be done. We don't want to do that. What we want to do is we want to send this to Final Cut or to Photoshop so we can edit that one particular frame inside of Photoshop. Okay? So if we go under Settings, you'll see that right here it's asking us for our format. There's a bunch of different formats that we could use in order to export out our stuff. We can export out just the video, we can export out the audio, we can export out the video and the audio, we can actually choose the codec by which we export out the video. There's a lot of different stuff that is available here for us specifically to use, to do and to utilize when we export our stuff out. Okay? We are not going to use this to start out with. Okay? The reason why I'm showing you guys this is because I want you to know where you can export out your stuff if you need to export stuff out. Now we got to go to Photoshop, or we have to go to Photoshop. This would be fantastic and great if we were exporting out our video and sending it to something like After Effects or something else like that. We need to export out our video, or export out our one singular image to Photoshop. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and play that video. Remember I told you before that there's a modified version of this particular video that I wanted us to watch, where a guy kind of goes through and shows us how to export out a particular clip for Photoshop. So we're going to take a look at this clip here really quick so he can show us how he's going to export stuff out. Okay.
In today's video, we are going to learn how to take a screen capture from your video. In other words, we're going to take a specific frame from your video and export it as a still image. Hey guys, welcome back to Final Cut Pro Shorts, a quick 1 to 2 minute tutorial highlighting some of Final Cut Pro's simpler features. Say, for example, you're uploading a video to YouTube and you want a specific frame from your video to use for a thumbnail. Final Cut Pro lets you easily export a selected frame from your video as a still image in a number of different formats. First thing we need to do is add exporting a still image as one of the shared destination presets. Open Final Cut Pro's settings by clicking on Final Cut Pro in the menu bar and selecting Preferences. Now in the Preference window, select Destinations on the top left. Click Add Destination, drag and drop Save Current Frame into your destination presets, and select your default export file type. This can always be changed later on when exporting your still image. To export your still image, down in your timeline, skim your clip and place a playhead over the frame you want to export. Now hit the Share button in the top left corner and select Save Current Frame from your destination presets. The Share window opens up where you can add a title, description, and tags to your image. Selecting the Settings tab will also let you select the file type of your exported image. Select your preferred file type, click Next, choose your save destination, and hit the Save button. Much like exporting a video, Final Cut Pro will export your still image in your selected format. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please share it with someone else who might like it. And be sure to check out the rest of my channel for more Final Cut Pro shorts and more in-depth tutorials.
Okay, very simplistic. Now, he went over a lot of different stuff, so I want to break it down a little bit for you. Okay, so we have our frame. We already know that Command E allows us to export stuff out if we need to export stuff out. But you'll notice that we do not necessarily have the save frame option available. So we're going to go up to the upper left-hand corner, and we're going to click on Final Cut Pro, and then go down to where it says Preferences. Okay, you make sure you click on Final Cut Pro, then go down to Preferences. Once we're inside of Preferences, we'll need to click on Destinations. Okay. Right now, you guys do not have the option to save current frame. Okay, save current frame for me is located on the left-hand side. When I go to export out stuff, it'll actually be there. So what you have to do is go over here on the right-hand side, click on Save Current Frame, and drag that over here and drop it on the left-hand side in the sidebar. So that way you have the ability to have that area in order to save your current frame. Now I just did it again because I have multiple options for it. I'm going to minimize that and take that off because I don't actually need that. Okay, but make sure you have Save Current Frame located over here on the left-hand side because if you don't have Save Current Frame, you're not going to be able to export that stuff out. Anytime, and this is important that you guys need to know, anytime you switch a computer in class, okay, you have to add in this Save Current Frame option. Okay, because it is not a default on Final Cut Pro. It is something you have to specifically add in order to get there. So make sure that it says Save Current Frame, and then once you have that, now we can go up here to the upper right-hand corner. You're going to see an option or a little icon right here that allows you to export items out or to share items out. And you'll see that when we click that, the Save Current Frame option is available. Okay, so go ahead and choose Save Current Frame. And now, when we save our current frame, you'll see that we get the same export window that we would have gotten earlier if we exported out by hitting Command E. Okay, the difference is this time we're exporting just one specific frame. Okay, well, what I want you guys to do is go under Settings. Your default will probably be something like PNG or like a JPEG image or something else like that. We want to export this out as a Photoshop file because we want to save this and be able to bring this back in. We want to be able to bring it back inside of Final Cut Pro. So we're going to save this as a Photoshop file. Okay, so you want to go to File and then or Export Photoshop File. You have 6 different options. Okay. Once you have that, you can go ahead and click Next, and that's where a bunch of items are going to pop up for you to be able to utilize or be able to choose from your save area. Okay, you guys want to choose your desktop. As much as possible, throw all your stuff up on your desktop, so that way it's very easy for you guys to find. It's not in a hidden folder or anything else like that. Some of you guys might have this. If you guys have this right here, you can go down and choose desktop, or you can expand it by hitting this down arrow, and that will expand your window, so that way you can decide where you want to export this out. But you want to make sure you export it out to your desktop. Title it up here at the top. You can just title this as Lesson and then Thumbnail. Or you can just title it as Lesson. You can title it whatever it is that you want to do. And if you need any help, again, just raise your hand. A TA will come around and kind of help guide you through if you need help going through certain things. Once you have that, you can go ahead and hit Save. Okay? Now, most of you guys might think that we're done, but we're still not quite done yet at this point. Okay? So we've gotten our individual image saved out to the desktop, but what we want to be able to do is just because that image is saved out to the desktop doesn't mean that when we come back, it's going to end up exactly where we want it to be when we come back. So what I want you guys to do is go ahead and use the blade tool. Keep your playhead where it is still located over here on this side, okay? And we're going to use the blade tool to come in here, and we're going to cut using the blade tool at that specific mark. Okay, so if you need to know how to use the blade tool, let's go ahead and go back up here up on screen. You can click your tool palette and go down and choose the blade tool, or you can just hit the letter B. If you hit the letter B, it will change what it is that you're doing. Now, if you haven't moved your playhead, awesome. You should be able to use the blade tool to go over here and have it snap right to where that playhead is. Now, if yours is not snapping, it's because you have snapping turned off. Snapping is located over here on the right-hand side of the screen. It should be in blue. It is the icon that is the furthest to the, or not the furthest, the fourth icon in from the left. Okay, that's snapping. And so you'll notice that if you hit the letter N, it'll turn on and off. And that's the reason why you're getting that blue on and off there. You want to make sure it's blue to make sure that it's on. Okay, once snapping is on, you can come in here and cut using the blade tool. And now you have two separate clips for you to be able to modify from this one original piece of video. Now to go back to your selection tool, you can hit the letter A, or you can go to your tool palette or to your toolbar and choose the letter A. Okay. Anyone have any questions at all so far? Should be pretty simple. Everyone should be able to go along. Awesome. Now we've set ourselves up to actually use Photoshop. Took a little bit for us to kind of get in, but we had to set ourselves up before we could actually begin to actually start utilizing Photoshop. So as I said before, when we exported out our particular image, we exported out as a Photoshop file. The reason why we're going to export out as a Photoshop file is that way when we go in and make our modifications and edits, we can just bring that Photoshop file back into Final Cut Pro and not have any problems and be able to see the changes that were made. So before we go any further, I want to go ahead and do that so that way we don't have to spend extra time at the end seeing what our Photoshop file looks like. So go ahead and hit Command-I again in order to begin to import that Photoshop file. Okay. Let me go back here. You want to hit Command-I. And when you hit Command-I, again on the desktop, you should be able to find the PSD, the Photoshop document that you've labeled. Now mine was called lesson-thumbnail.psd. Go ahead and import that selected file. Okay. When you import that selected file, you will now see it up here in the upper left-hand corner inside your media browser. Let's go ahead and take that file and drag it and drop it down in between those two clips where originally we had our video stopped. And now when we take our playhead back and play it through again, you'll see that it will stop automatically on that clip for a little bit, and then it will continue to go forward. Okay, so if you guys didn't actually see that, we imported our PSD, our Photoshop document, into Final Cut. We already had the in points and out points set as a default. We dragged that down into the timeline and dropped it in between where we cut the clips. That way it slides kind of right in there. Okay. Anyone have any questions or need any help at all before we move on? Yep, go for it, Zach. You need help?
It's like much at once.
Okay, cool. I'm going to send Cameron over there to have him take a look at it for you. Anyone else? Okay. Cool. Awesome. Okay, cool. So now that we have our Photoshop document inside of our Final Cut Pro event for a little bit, and inside of our Final Cut Pro project, let's go ahead and minimize this and open up Photoshop. So we're going to minimize this. On your desktop, you should see an item that already says like your lesson thumbnail. If you double click on that, it'll open up Photoshop. I already have Photoshop open, so I'm going to go in a little bit different, and I'm going to go to File, Open. I'm going to go under my desktop. I'm going to find my lesson thumbnail.psd, double click on it, and open it up. Okay, you guys can just double click on yours on the desktop, and again, Photoshop should basically open up for you guys when you guys first start out. Okay, cool. Most everyone is having Photoshop open at this particular time. So while Photoshop is opening up here, let me kind of go over what it is that we're going to do. Today what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you guys how Photoshop works at the very, very basic level. Okay, so we just got done exporting out an image that we can use to modify inside of Photoshop, but we got to learn how to utilize Photoshop. So I'm going to go over with you guys really quickly. I'm going to go over the tool palette, and I'm going to go over some of the options that you have available. Now, you don't have to do everything that I'm going to do, but I'm going to walk you through step by step how to do it anyways, so that way you can utilize the most out of the tools that you have available to you. Okay, so it's gonna be a little bit because I got to go through about 5 or 6 tools, the basic tools, and then kind of go over layers and stuff, and kind of be able to have you guys understand what it is you're working in before we fully invest in this particular project. So now that we have everyone caught up here a little bit, let's go over what the Photoshop layout actually looks like, so you guys kind of have a good understanding. Okay, first of all, over here on the left-hand side, going all the way down, this is what's called your tool palette. Okay, Final Cut Pro has 7 or 8 different tools for you to use. Photoshop has more than 50. Okay, there's a lot of different tools. We are not going to be able to go through them. You could spend a year going through each of the tools and spend 1 week on each of the individual tools, and you might get through them all in a year. There's a lot of different tools that you have in your palette or inside your bag for you to be able to use. But there's some that you're going to keep going back to over and over again. I'm going to try to go through those as much as I possibly can today. Anytime you want to see what a tool is, if you just hover your mouse over the top of it, actually if you click and hover your mouse over the top of it, it will give you a very, very brief tutorial or a quick video of what that particular item or that icon or tool does. So if you want to go ahead and hover over those, you should see pop-ups that actually occur for you. If you just click on it too, you'll be able to kind of see how that looks. But for the most part, anytime you hover over any one of these icons, you should get a little pop-out that explains to you what you can use this for. If you see the little pop-out, you can move your mouse over it and go under and click Learn How, and it'll give you more information on how to utilize that particular tool. Today we're going to go over the Selection tool, the Lasso tool, the Quick Selection tool, the Paint tool, and the Text tool. So we're going to go over quite a few of these. Now, if you look at this tool palette and look on the lower right-hand corner of each of the icons, you'll see a little arrow. Most of them have that little arrow in the bottom right-hand corner of the icon. Goodness gracious. Yeah. Okay? Most of them do have that. Some of them don't. If they do have that, if you click and hold down, so go ahead and click and hold down on that icon, you'll see that there are more tools available to you inside of that particular tool. So there are sub-tools available for you. Okay? So just because you see a bunch of them up here doesn't mean that that's all of them. There's actually more that are underneath. But you have to click and hold in order to be able to find what more items are available underneath of that particular tool. Okay? Some of them are grouped together. Actually, most of them are grouped together. Some of them are not. All right, but it is all there and available for you to take a look at. So that's this left-hand side. Does anyone have any questions really quickly about the tool palette? Okay. Down here at the bottom of the tool palette, you will see that you have colors that you have selected. You can swap back and forth between these two colors. The first one is the foreground color. The second one is the background color. If you ever want to swap those, there is a right angle icon that you can click on, and it will swap those colors back and forth. Okay. The reason why that's important is because if you look in the upper right-hand corner as you're doing this, you'll notice that my colors are changing in the upper right-hand corner. And that's because I have the color window open inside of my Windows tab. Okay, so we'll get to the Windows tab here in just 1 second. But that is available for you to utilize and use. If you ever want to adjust any of these colors, if you click on the color, or double click, or not double click on the color, if you come up here to the upper right-hand corner, you can adjust those colors, and you'll see that as you're adjusting those colors inside the color tab in the color window, it changes in the bottom right-hand corner. Now, if you also double-click, let me see if this does it, because I know it popped up over here for me. If you double-click on this, it will also pop up a color picker for you to choose and change the colors. This will become more and more important as we move towards text, as we move towards backgrounds, and we move towards shapes. Okay? Anyone have any questions at all so far? Okay. Your color picker allows you to choose different colors. You can use the slider to slide up and down and choose a color. And then you can use the spot tool to click a very specific spot so that way you can find very specific colors that you want to grab. Okay? And a little later on, a little bit more when we get into a lesson, I'll show you how you can actually pick a color just by its number, by its hexadecimal number, and then be able to type that in, and you'll get the same color on each computer that you really, really want to target and get. Because our school has very, very specific colors when we use specific blues and we use specific golds and so on and so forth. Okay? Any questions about the left-hand side of the screen so far? Okay? Right-hand side, I already told you this before, okay, but we kind of went over here already. You'll see that there are different tabs and there's different windows that are available to you in the upper right-hand corner, in the mid section, and in the bottom right-hand corner. Okay? Each of these different tabs are available to you. based on the default workspace that we're working in. We're working in the default workspace. You can modify and change this workspace. You can actually add in windows. So if you actually go under window at the top, you'll see a bunch of other windows that you can click open to utilize. You can take and drag those windows and drop them off in each of these other windows up here. So you'll have different tabs that you can choose back and forth between. Okay, most of you guys will not need to do that, but I need you to know that it is available for you there, so that way you can utilize that as you need to utilize that. Any questions so far about the window space or the different tabs inside the window space? It's like a browser, internet browser. No? Okay, cool. Upper right-hand corner is typically for colors. In the middle of the screen is where you have your libraries, adjustments, and styles. This is to change to very different and diverse fonts, shapes, colors. There's a lot of different stuff that's available to you in this midsection. You can also move some of these windows around to kind of modify it to fit your own space, but we're not going to do that for right now. That's the middle section. Bottom section. Okay, bottom section for you right here. Okay, some of you can't see that because I have my window open. Let's put that one. What these are called. These guideline areas are called rulers. This lets you know how many pixels or inches or anything else that your image is across, so you can get to a very, very specific and precise location in the image. Okay, if you hold down Control and you click inside the numbers, you have the ability to change it to inches, centimeters, millimeters, points, picas, percent, and so on and so forth. Okay, we will be dealing with pixels because we're utilizing video. We work in the 1920 by 1080 color space. If you're doing 4K, it's twice as big as that. But we're not working in the 4K realm yet. We're working only in high definition. There are more than 1 million individual dots that are inside of this image. That if we actually use the zoom tool, and we actually zoomed all the way in, which I'm going to do here really quick, you can actually start to see what those individual dots look like and adjust those individual dots as you go along. Okay? When your camera is picking up or sensing different things, this is what it's doing. It is picking up individual dots and recording individual images so that way it can be replicated on a screen. It's putting all that information inside of one of those pixels, which we talked about at the beginning of the semester. Put enough of those pixels together, the image looks like this. Okay, it looks like an actual image, even though it's just a bunch of different colors. Okay? Any questions so far about any of that stuff before I move on to the next thing? Okay, cool. Last but not least, there's a bunch of different drop-down menus available up here inside your menu bar. There's a lot of different drop-downs. Okay, there's a lot of information. The menu bar might be helpful and beneficial if you need to find a window, if you need to find a specific effect. There's different stuff that's available up here for you to be able to go through and dig deeper in once you get to know the application more. I'm not going to jump into that today. I'm going to focus down on just the basics. Right now you're kind of getting an idea of what Photoshop looks like, and now we're going to concentrate a little bit more on the basics for different things. Okay? Cool. All right, so let's go ahead and hop into Photoshop, and let's see what this thing is all about. So the first thing I said I wanted to start out with was utilizing the selection tool. So if you go over here on the left-hand side, at the top of the screen, you will see that we have the Move tool or the Selection tool. Go ahead and click on that. Okay? The Move tool or the Selection tool allows you to take different objects and move stuff around. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this layer from one side of the screen over to the next. Okay? That's utilizing the Move tool. Now, if you take a look at what happened when I did that, you will see that there's a checkered board behind this image. Okay? That checkered board is saying that there is nothing there. That is saying that whatever is there in the background, if we export this out as a PNG, it's going to be opaque, which means it's going to be see-through, so whatever you have in your video will be able to be seen underneath. If you export out as a JPEG, it will not have opacity attached to it. It'll show up as black. Okay? But basically, if you see this checkered board back behind there, that means that this particular item is allowing the background to shine through and for it to be able to see through. Okay? Now, you'll notice that because I moved this over, that's not what I want. I want to move it back. How do we undo something? What's the keyboard command shortcut that we use inside of Final Cut Pro to undo things? Command Z. So go ahead and hit Command Z if you moved it, and you'll notice that it moves right back for you. Okay? Now, if you keep hitting Command Z, Command Z, Command Z, it will not step backwards for you. It'll just redo or undo. If you want to keep going further and further back, you have to hold down Option, Command, and Z. And then, like for example, when I move this here, or I move this here, or I move that there, if I just use Command Z, it doesn't necessarily move it all the way back. If I hold down Option, Command Z, it'll keep moving things all the way back until everything moves back to exactly where it was. Okay? That wasn't necessarily the best example. I can do this, and then I can do this, and then, yeah, we'll do that. So let's say, oh, oops, I messed up, right? If I hit Command Z, and I keep going back and forth, it's only going to take off the last action that I made. If I hold down Option, Command Z, it'll allow me to continue to step back until I get back to where I was at the beginning. Okay? So if you ever make a mistake, Command Z it really quickly, and then go back and try and redo it again. Right? You have the ability to do that. So that's the Move tool. So you can pick up and move different objects and items inside of Photoshop. Okay? The next thing I want us to work on, though, is the Selection tool. So if we go one more item, or not the Selection tool. Yes, actually, it's the Marquee tool. Sorry, my bad. Next thing I want us to take a look at is the Marquee tool. The Marquee tool, right down here below, if we click and hold, allows us to choose either square shapes, circular shapes, or some other individual shapes. Okay? This allows us to pick and choose a specific square or circle inside of Photoshop and be able to modify only the selection that is inside of whatever we've chosen. Okay? That's what this allows you to do. Now the Marquee selection isn't really applicable to things that we need to do, so we're not going to use that really today. What I really want to focus on is the Lasso tool. So let's go to the third one down. If we go to the third one down, you'll see it says it's the Magnetic Lasso tool. But if you click and hold inside, you'll see that you actually have the actual Lasso tool. Okay? We're going to start with the Magnetic Lasso tool, and then we're going to move to the regular Lasso tool. So let's go ahead and click on the Magnetic Lasso tool. Okay? And you'll see that my icon has changed. What I want you guys to do is, in your video, you guys have a leg or a foot as well as a shoe. Okay? Just like I do. I have a leg and I have a shoe. What I want you guys to do is use the Magnetic Lasso tool to draw an outline around the leg, around the shoe, and around the other shoe. So that way we only get the leg and the other shoe inside of our selection. Now, before you jump in and do that, I want to show you how this works. The Magnetic Lasso tool allows you to click and then slowly begin to trace around an image. And what it's looking for is it's looking for differentiation in color at the pixel level automatically. So you can see, like, even though I'm not directly staying on the line, you see how it kind of like snaps to it? The Magnetic Lasso tool allows you to pick and choose different stuff automatically. The computer is going to look for the differentiation in color. Now you'll notice that as I get closer to things that are white on white, it becomes much more difficult for the computer to distinguish what's the shoe versus the mark in the roadway. Okay? But you'll see that I can basically get most of this figured out just by clicking once and dragging the magnetic lasso tool around and outlining objects and things. Now right now I'm going really slow. Okay? What I can actually do is I can actually go pretty fast. I can click here and I can continue to go down, I can continue to go down, and you'll notice that the faster I go, the less points it's actually making. So I can't really modify this later on. So if I go too fast, that's going to be a bit of a problem because, as you can see, it didn't make my point up there at the top. And as I'm going through, it didn't necessarily make the best lasso tool, or the best object for me to be able to utilize. So the best thing to do is to kind of go slow and still kind of trace it, and you'll see it'll add in a little bit more, some more anchor points as you're going around and doing that. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys a couple of minutes to go ahead and do that. So you guys go ahead and do that really quick. I'm going to go ahead and outline mine here. I'm going to keep talking as I'm going through and doing different stuff. If you need to make a point at any time, you can click. You don't have to just let it drag and go. You can actually click like I did right there. And you can click this and make sure you have the entire selection inside of there. Now, it doesn't have to be perfect because I'm going to show you how to clean that up, but it should be pretty good enough to where you can fully utilize it to the best of your to the best of your ability for different things. Okay, so make sure you go ahead and go around and outline that. I'm going to go ahead and take a look at it and see what it is that you guys are doing. So you want to have both feet in there as much as possible. Okay. And like I said, it's okay if it's not perfect. We're going to fix that. Okay. And for some of you guys, your feet are separated too. Okay. Okay, cool. So that should be about long enough for you to be able to do it. You should be able to move kind of quick. Okay. Now, if you take a look at mine, you'll notice that I left out this part of the gene. So like if I go up here, I'm going to switch to my zoom tool by hitting the letter Z. Okay, you'll see I left out this part of the genes. Okay, you'll see that I didn't really get this up in here. There's kind of some stuff that I didn't quite fully get here with the road that I need to take out. If you look over here with the shoe, you can see I missed part of the shoe. Okay, there's definitely some stuff that I can easily go back in and fix. Like I said, this part of the shoe. If I go up here and zoom in right here, you can see I missed this part of the jeans and so on and so forth. Okay, so the way you can do that is by going back in and utilizing just the regular lasso tool. So by the way, if you want to know how to use the zoom tool, you can hit the letter Z, or you can come all the way down here on your tool palette on the left-hand side and click on the zoom tool. And that will allow you to zoom in. It's just like we do in Final Cut. Hold down Option to minimize and zoom out. You can just click wherever you want to zoom in, and you'll be able to click and zoom in. Okay, so you have the ability to kind of adjust some of that stuff. But I'm going to go through and use the lasso tool. I'm going to clean this up a little bit, and watch how I'm going to be able to do this. Okay, so if I go to the magnetic lasso tool, if I click and hold down, you'll see there's three options that are underneath there: the lasso tool, the polygon lasso tool, and the magnetic lasso tool. I'm going to use just the regular lasso tool. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and zoom in. And what I'm going to do is exactly what the lasso tool allows me to do. Anyone know what a lasso is? A whip, okay, or something like that? Anyone else? What's a lasso? It's a big thing of rope, right, that you can use, that you can spin around in the air and use to capture stuff. If you take a look at our icons, if I go back inside of Photoshop here, right, if I go back inside of Photoshop, if you take a look around what we've done with this magnetic lasso, what does this look like? Those dots look like a rope. Okay, those little ant-looking things, it looks like knots in a rope that has been corded together. So if you think of it that way, what you're doing is you're really roping in the stuff that you want to utilize. So I'm going to use the lasso tool, and as I use the lasso tool, I'm going to hold down the Shift key. Okay, when I hold down the Shift key, you'll notice that my icon changes on the screen. Okay, so right now it's normal, but when I hold down the Shift key, it all of a sudden adds the lasso tool with a plus on it. The reason why that's important is because it's going to add whatever it is that I lasso in. So for the lasso tool, I'm going to click down, click and hold down, and I'm going to go around this particular object and then go inside of here and lasso and let go and add that to my selection. Okay, so I'll do that again so that way you guys can kind of see it. Okay, I'm going to go, whoops, let me Command Z that. I'm going to hold down Shift, I'm going to click and I'm going to hold. and I'm going to circle around all the stuff that I want to get inside of my selection, then let go, and all of a sudden it's added to that particular selection. Now, sometimes some of you might do this. Watch up on screen because I want to make sure that you guys see what happens when you make a mistake. Okay? Some of you guys might see this and just go, oh, I'm going to click inside of here and start moving. Uh-oh. Okay? Because I'm inside of this particular selection with the lasso tool, it thinks that I want to take this selection and move it. That's not what we want to have happen. So I hit Command-Z, I hold down Shift, now it's utilizing the lasso tool, and I'm able to kind of rope this around and add that back in there. Okay? So what you can do is you can go around and add items into your selection. So I want you guys to take a couple minutes to go ahead and do that. I'm also going to go ahead and do that up here on the screen. There's going to be parts that you want to take out. We'll get to that in 1 second. I want you to add stuff in first that you might have forgotten. Okay? So you can see I've missed more stuff down here. I've missed more stuff down here. I've messed that up a little bit. I need to add in stuff up here. So you want to make sure that you get as much of this inside of your selection as possible, so that way you can add it in and be able to utilize it. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys, like I said, a couple of minutes to do that. It doesn't have to be totally pitch perfect, but it should be a little bit better, okay, than how you actually have it. Yep, go for it, Nathan.
So I'm working with the magnetic lasso.
Yep.
And how do I get it to stop using that?
You have to go all the way back around. So if you're using the magnetic lasso tool, everyone, if you need it to go back around, you can click and you outline whatever it is you're going to do. You want to go all the way back around to your first anchor point and click, and it'll create that whole selection for you. Okay, so you want to make sure you finish it. It's just like a lasso. It's a circle you want to go around and you want to grab all the way through and through. Okay. Okay. Cool. If you want to go back and now take out certain stuff like this, instead of holding down the Shift key, you're going to hold down the Option key. Option will turn up a minus sign. So Shift is a plus, Option is a minus. So if you want to take out certain things, like I want to take this part out right here, I hold down Shift, and it's going to allow me to take out stuff inside of that selection. Okay, or sorry, not Shift. I'm going to hold down Option, my bad. I'm going to go down here, go around, take out some of this stuff, and you want to select the stuff that you want to take out. Okay? So that way you have a bunch of different stuff that's available to you. And again, it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. I'm making mine a little bit more perfect because I have a little bit more time to get stuff done, and I want you guys to kind of see what it looks like once you actually spend a little bit more time trying to make sure that everything is included inside of your particular selection. Okay? So now I'm swapping back and forth between the plus and the minus, so you can see stuff that I've added versus stuff that I've taken out. Okay. Then I'm going to minimize and zoom back out, and you'll see that when I zoom back out, everything looks pretty good. Okay. Cool. So that's the lasso tool, that's the zoom tool. You're able to kind of really utilize this as best you possibly can. Very, very basics. Now, if you were to use your selection tool, again, go back up and click on your move tool or hit the letter V, and you were to try to move stuff around, you'll notice that when you move stuff around, you actually take those feet out of the image. We don't want to do that, right? We don't want to do that. As a matter of fact, if we wanted to, we could duplicate those feet and make a bunch of different feet on there. I think it's by hitting Command D. It'll actually just create a duplicate for us, but we're not going to do that. That's not what we want to do for our particular item for things today. Okay. What we want to do is we want to make this on its own separate layer. Okay. So if you remember what I said before about this coming in handy down here at the bottom, this is where we're going to start creating new layers and utilizing the layers option that's available to us. So I'm going to take this off of here. Gosh darn it. Yeah, it's visual. Shoot. Let's move this over here. There we go. Cool. Okay. So if you see this option down here, these layers that are available for you down here to take a look at, we're going to take our selection that we have here and we're going to create a new layer. So the way we're going to do that is by holding down Control and clicking on our image that we actually have, and that should allow us to, clicking, oh no, it's not doing it. Why is it not doing that? It should allow us to create a new layer, but it's not letting me do that. I don't know why right now. Am I not on the selection tool? There we go. Wow, that's really weird. You guys should have the ability to control click and make a new layer. Actually, make sure you're on the lasso tool. There you go. There you go. You have to make sure you're on the lasso tool. That's where I messed up. Okay. You want to make sure that you're on the lasso tool and control click inside your selection. And you want to do layer via copy. Okay. Layer via copy. Now when you click layer via copy, everything goes away on your screen. Okay. If you don't have the lasso tool selected, you're not going to be able to create a new layer. Okay, so you have to make sure the lasso tool is up there. That's where I messed up. But you'll notice that if you control click inside of your selection and go down and choose layer via copy, in the bottom right hand portion of your screen, you will now see two different layers that you have available to you. Okay, so this is what it looks like before. This is what it looks like after. All right. It looks like nothing has changed in your image, but that's because we haven't changed things yet fully in your image. We made a duplicate of everything that is inside of what you've lassoed together inside of your selection tool. Okay? If you do not have two layers, raise your hand. Okay? Cameron or Isabel or Kaylee, can you guys go help them out? Okay? Make sure you have your selection selected first. Most people, that seems to be the issue. Make sure you have the lasso tool selected. Control click, and then create a layer via copy. Okay, and when you create layer via copy, that's how you're able to do it. If you don't have anything selected, you're not going to have a second layer. Did you help out, Nathan, right there? Help him out. Cool. Okay, you should not have another dialog box pop up or anything else like that. Okay, so most everyone should be there now. If you go down to your layers window, you'll see that there's an eyeball icon next to each individual layer. Okay. That's letting you know whether that layer is visible or not visible. Under layer 1, click the eyeball. Okay. When you turn off layer 1, you're taking off everything that was there before in that image. Now only layer 2 is available, and layer 2 is the layer that you guys actually utilize to create your own selection. Okay, I'll do that again. So we still have layer 1, it's still there. When we made our new selection, it only created a copy of what we had outlined inside of our lasso tool. And when we take away the original, when we hide it, hide the visibility of it, it only shows what we had originally. So this is what everyone should have. Raise your hand if you do not just have the feet up on your screen. Okay, cool. So you got to have a selection tool. Okay, I'm going to go around really quickly and make sure that some people are set up here. Most of the problems, if you control click inside of your, right there, hold down control and click. Hold down control and click. Layer via copy. There you go. That's your layer 2. Yep, there you go. Yep, cool. Perfect, awesome. Yep, that's fine. Cool. As long as you just have the feet, you're good to go. Okay, because you want to have just the feet inside of your thumbnail. Okay. Now, I've shown you how to create layers via copy, but I haven't shown you how to create a new layer just by itself. So that'll be the next thing that we're going to add in here and that we're going to do. Okay. We're going to create a new layer. And so the way we're going to create a new layer is by coming down here to the bottom right-hand corner, and you'll see that there's a trash icon that allows you to delete a layer that you have highlighted. And right next to that trash icon, there is an icon that says Create New Layer. Go ahead and click on that. When you create a new layer, you now should have layer 3. Okay? Layer 3 should be on top of the other 2 layers. It looks like we did nothing to our screen, but what we're doing is we're saying that we need to create something, or we're about to create something on that particular layer. And what we're going to do now is we're going to throw a bunch of color on this layer and choose something that we're going to put in for our background. Okay, most YouTube thumbnails actually have a bunch of color to pull from. In the background, they have different stuff on top of it. This is how they typically tend to do it. So now that we have our new layer, our layer 3 selected, let's go over and choose the paint bucket tool. Now you guys will not have the paint bucket tool to start out with. You guys will have the gradient tool to start out with. It'll be right up above the blur tool, which looks like a little eyedrop or like a little water drop icon. You want to go one icon above that, click and hold, and choose the paint bucket tool. Okay? Now that you've chosen the paint bucket tool, I want you to go down into your color picker on the bottom left-hand corner, double click on your foreground color, and choose a color that you want to use for your YouTube icon or your YouTube thumbnail. Okay, I'm going to choose a bright green, just so that way that stands out. Once you have your color selected, you can hit OK. And then once you have that done, you can go down and click anywhere inside of your layer, and it will create the entire background that particular color. Now you'll notice that when you do create your entire background that color, your layer 3 actually has and shows what that layer looks like. Okay? If you turn off the visibility of it, it's still there, it's just hidden. So you can turn on or off the visibility for those individual layers as you're working on and utilizing them. Okay? But we have a color now that we've put up here on the screen, but our feet aren't there. Right? We took a bunch of paint, threw it up on a canvas, and now it's covering up our feet. We want our feet to go behind it. So what we have to do is readjust the orders of the layers. So right now we have layer 1, layer 2, layer 3. We need to put layer 3 under layer 2. And the way you do that is you drag layer 3 and drop it underneath. And you'll see that when you do that, you have your feet up on top. Okay? And now this is starting to look more like a YouTube thumbnail icon that we actually want for our particular video. And we can even insert it inside of a video if we want to. Okay? Cool. Last thing we're going to do with this is we're going to add in some text. Okay? The text tool is located over here on the left-hand side inside of your tool palette again. You can go down to the letter T. It's just like it is kind of in Final Cut Pro. If you click on letter T, you can actually come out here and draw a text box as big as you want that text box to be. Okay? And once you've drawn that text box, you can add in whatever you want to say into your particular text box. You can type in something as simple as like, "Hey Broncos." Okay? Now you'll notice that as you're typing, you're not seeing what you're typing. Anyone want to guess why? Same color, right? Same color as your foreground. So it doesn't matter what you type in there, it's not going to appear. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to go in and change your color of your font before you start typing. So I'm going to turn mine to purple just so that way you can see it. And now when I start typing in "Hey Broncos," you can actually see it pop up on the screen. Okay? So you want to change your font color before you go a little bit further than that. Okay? Now some of you might not like the font size. Your font might be really, really small. If you highlight all your font and go up to the top of the screen, you'll see that you have a bunch of different fonts to choose from. You have different sizes to choose from. You have different shapes. You can adjust the paragraph form, much like you do in a Word document. And you can even adjust the color as well. And then when you're done with that, you can hit the check mark button, and it will actually lock it down and lock it in. Okay? But this now allows you to have 4 separate layers for you to edit in, and you get to decide which order those layers are in by dragging and dropping them over here in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. Okay? Now you'll see if I go back to my selection tool and I start moving this font around and I put this underneath the green will supersede whatever's on the font. Okay? Because it takes up more of the space. If I readjust these items and things, you can adjust them and kind of work with it like that if you want to for each individual frame. Okay, right now this is behind the feet, so if I were to put this right here, you can see the feet kind of cover up the on-co's or whatever, so now it just says "Hey Bro." Okay, but you can actually adjust this and kind of move this around to wherever it is that you want to move it around inside of your particular thumbnail. Okay, any questions about any of that stuff at all so far? Okay, last thing we need to do. We have not saved this at all so far. Unlike Final Cut Pro, that saves things as you're going along, Photoshop does not save things as you make new moves. you have to save it as you're going along. So the way you save it is by hitting Command S. Okay, now because you've already set up a Photoshop document, no new window will pop up saying that you have to save it as a particular Photoshop document or anything else like that. Okay, if you just hit Command S, it'll save it as is. Okay, because we already created that Photoshop document. But if you want to save it, let's say you start a new file and you want to save something as, you go to File, Save As, and then you have the ability to choose how you want to save your Photoshop document. Okay, but we just got done saving it. What's really cool about what we just got done doing, though, is because we sent it from Final Cut Pro into Photoshop, if we open back up Final Cut Pro and we go down and take a look at our particular lesson up here, it should be saved and it should automatically update. Apparently mine did not save and automatically update. This stuff is supposed to save and automatically, maybe I didn't save mine. When you actually save it, it automatically updates it inside of Final Cut Pro for you. Oh yeah, I didn't save mine. So I hit Command S, it saves. When I go back inside of Final Cut Pro, this lesson thumbnail should be updated. It's not updated. Let me see if I quit out and I come back in. It's supposed to update it dynamically. So as you make changes inside of Final Cut Pro, or as you make changes inside of Photoshop, if you sent it from Final Cut Pro to Photoshop, it'll automatically open back up and be able for you to see those changes for you in here. Okay, apparently mine does not want to do that though for some weird reason. Try and re-import. Command I, re-import, because this is something, you shouldn't have to do that. There you go, it's there. If I re-import that, that's weird, it shouldn't do that. But it should actually save it. It's supposed to save it in place if you're working with it. So that way when you go over here and you drag and drop it down, you can actually replace it. And now whenever your video stops, it'll actually stop on that particular frame, and then it'll continue to go forward. Yep. Okay, but it's supposed to update it dynamically in place. Dismiss. You open up the wrong thing. Okay. If it doesn't, it's very easy. Re-import it, and you can drag it, drop it back down in there. But for the most part, it should dynamically link. It looks like most everyone else's in here is dynamically linked, because that's how it should actually go through and do. And so even if you were to now for this, so it says, hey Broncos, if I were to reopen my stuff back up, let's go back to the screen. Okay. So it says, hey Broncos, and it's dropped down in there. If I were to reopen back up Photoshop, and I were to move this Hey Broncos thing over here to the bottom left and resave it, inside of Final Cut Pro, it is supposed to change it automatically. It's supposed to do dynamic linking, and it's supposed to change it automatically. So that you had the ability to be able to utilize that stuff as you guys are working on things. Okay. Any questions about Photoshop or Final Cut Pro and how to transition between the two? Okay, awesome. Next time through, we're going to be going through GarageBand. So I'll show you guys how to utilize GarageBand and be able to import stuff back and forth between Final Cut Pro and GarageBand.